Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and remember, context is everything. Media Network founder and CEO John Michael is reading a textbook. Again, this is a 1940 American history textbook from the year 1940, before the United States was involved in World War II. This is an American history textbook from a Catholic school, probably written for, I'd say, a 10-year-old reading level. But context is everything, and here is how history sounded back then. We're on Chapter 7, Unit 4, Texas and Mexico. Land, more land. New land was the motto of the American pioneers. The wilderness attracted them. Adventure was in their blood, so they pushed down the rivers, across the plains, over the mountains, into the Oregon, into Texas, into California. The Texas country lay to the southwest of Louisiana. The planters desired new land and rich soil for their cotton crops. Planting cotton on the land year after year left the soil without much plant food nutrients. Texas belonged to the Republic of Mexico. It was rich and almost uninhabited by land. Beginning about 1820, many Americans left the United States and moved into Texas, which belonged to Mexico. Among those who went there were many slave owners from the South. The northern part of the United States was being closed to slavery by this time. The northern part of America was being closed to slavery. Okay. The southern slave owners needed new land, farmland. This they could get in nearby Texas. The governor of Mexico gave to Stephen F. Austin a large tract of fertile land in Texas. Austin was a Yankee land dealer. He planned to encourage several hundred American families to settle on this land. There were people from Mississippi Valley who wanted to make a fresh start of life. There were very hard times in America, and families had lost their homes. Times in America, and many families had lost their homes. Numbers of these people simply loaded a flatboat with everything they owned and floated down the Mississippi River into New Orleans. Then they journeyed overland, or a ship along the coast carried them into Texas. The Americans were welcomed into Texas, which was almost unsettled state. All Texas asked was that the settlers respect the people and the Catholics. Land was free, and each family received a large estate. More and more Americans went into Texas, but few of them were Catholics. They opened up farms and ranches. They suffered many hardships. Sometimes lack of rain would ruin their crops. Sometimes too much rain would cause rivers to overflow. The land was flooded and the crops were destroyed. The settlers prospered in spite of all their difficulties. Soon Texas had quite a large population, and its settlers were mostly Americans. Friendly relations between Americans and Mexicans did not last. Not all Americans were seeking homes in Texas. Some who went there were really adventurers who were actually looking for trouble. They were quarrelsome fellows and easily found Mexicans who were ready to fight. Bad feelings arose between the Americans and the Mexicans. Mexico abolishes slavery. This feeling became still worse when Mexican government passed a law forbidding slavery. This was a really good law, but it outraged the Americans. Another new order forbade settlement of any Americans in Texas. Texas belonged to Mexico, and the Mexican government had a perfect right to make its own laws. The Americans, or Texans, as they are now called themselves, were angry. They wanted land, and they wanted to keep their slaves. They did not like the government of Mexico, so they revolted. This means that the Texans became rebels and took up arms against the government of Mexico. Texas followed the leadership of Sam Houston. The Alamo. The Mexican president was Santa Anna. He was a dictator. He had seized Mexican government and ran it to suit himself. Santa Anna had no intention of giving up the country of Texas without a fight. At the head of his army of 5,000 men, he marched against the Texan rebels. Santa Anna came upon a small force. Santa Anna came upon a small force of about 200 Texans. They had made a fort out of old mission chapel called the Alamo. Santa Anna's forces attacked the fort. The 200 Texans were determined to die rather than surrender. They fought till the last man was killed. Years later, an American president, Theodore Roosevelt, said that this fight at the Alamo was one of the bravest fights of which he had ever heard. After the time when Americans fought Mexicans, the battle cry was, "Remember the Alamo." The Lone Star Republic. The Texans did not lose heart after this first defeat. Sam Houston had a fine little army under his command. He picked out a good spot for battle near San Jacinto River. The Mexicans felt sure that once again they could crush the Texans. They were wrong. Sam Houston's troops fell upon the Mexicans and destroyed them. Santa Anna was taken prisoner. Texas soon declared her independence. Mexico would not acknowledge the independence of Texas. The new nation was sometimes called the Lone Star Republic because she had but one star on her flag. Texans remained an independent nation until 1845. Then, as many expected, this little American republic became part of the United States. This is what the Southerners had long wanted. It opened another great territory to slavery. Our war with Mexico. Mexico still claimed a part of Texas, yet Texas had become a state in the American Union. As was to be expected, war broke out between the United States and Mexico. It was in 1846. James K. Polk was president of the United States. General Zachary Taylor was sent with an American army against the Mexicans. Old Rough and Ready, as Taylor was called, won several battles. General Winfield Scott invaded Mexico and captured Mexico City, the capital. After 2 years of fighting, and Mexicans were defeated. General Taylor had become very popular. Later, he was this war hero was elected president of the United States. I think that he's notoriously not a very good president, but I guess we'll get there. The Mexican War turned out to be a splendid school for young Army officers. In the picture, General Scott was showing his young officers how to plan a battle by using a map. Many of the officers who fought in the Mexican War later became famous. Among these officers were Robert E. Lee, Ulysses S. Grant, and Zachary Taylor. They fought on opposite sides of the Civil War. They were greatest generals of that war, Lee and Grant. Territory from Mexico. Americans were proud of the way their soldiers fought in the Mexican War. The territory we gained in 1848 was splendid. The United States paid Mexico $15 million. We added a territory larger than the 13 original states. It was very rich territory. Study the map on 295 and notice how the United States was growing. Here it is. That's so far. Our states of Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, part of Colorado, and Wyoming, and the great state of California all once belonged to Mexico. After Mexican War, our country stretched across the continent from the Atlantic to the Pacific. And I think that was James K Polk as president, as they said earlier, and I think that he only ran one term. He won that term. He promised we're going to expand Atlantic to Pacific. And then he said, I did it. I don't think I'm going to run again. I'm pretty sure that was him. But that's it. God bless. Bye-bye. Goodbye. Thank you. Have a good day.